The name Chia comes from the Chibchanchur moon. It is the symbol of mundane pleasures in a woman's figure, but nowadays Chia is also a symbol of accelerated growth and a wealthy lifestyle, only a few minutes away from the capital of Colombia. When did this tranquil countryside place forget its origin to transform into a massive environmental threat? 20 years ago, in the 1990s, Chia was a rural town that found through agriculture was the easiest way to survive. When Bogotá began to grow out of control, business people and company owners decided to get away from the harsh city and find a quiet place to rest their heads and think of how to solve their economic problems. The easiest solution was only 20 to 30 minutes away from their monetary source. To think of Chia is to think of a cosmopolitan city where rural and urban blend harmoniously. This situation has generated growth in necessities, infrastructure, and roads. Urban growth is lower than population growth, which increases the quantity of deficit in housing and recreates the same quantities of deficit. Although there weren't enough houses for the people, the administration of the municipality managed to their profit wisely to make Chia the luxurious place it is now. 30% of the people belong to a high stratum. 99% of the population has covered water, sewer, electricity, health, and education services. And according to the mayor's office, only 1% of the population lives in the countryside. Using these statistics, Chia seems like the most comfortable and safe place to live in Cundinamarca. And looking at the situation in that perspective, it is. But who thought of the environmental impact of this wonderful urban development? According to the designated profit for the year 2010, the percent of available economic resources are designated for urban development in general, and only the profit concerns to the environment. That little percentage is dedicated to preserve the two important ecosystems that are vital for the environment survival, the high mountain forest and the páramo. The last one provides with water to the municipalities of Subatroque, Chia, and Nuesa. The high mountain forest is located in the two mountains that protect Chia like a fort, La Valvanera and Yerba Buena. Yerba Buena has been target of digging activities that led later to the construction of permanent residencies for people whose activities are strictly performed in the city. This particular aspect leads to the creation of highways and roads, which seriously threaten the conservation of mountain ecosystems of the top of the mountains, which changes dramatically the hybrid reservoirs. The consequences of these activities have already been seen in the small creek of Torca, which has exceeded the water level that it is normally. The flooding of this creek eliminates the small vegetation nearby, like the nipa, rosemary, cinnamon tree, that species like mountain bunny and small birds need for their survival. The environmental price of those commodities is high. Habitat loss and threatened species is a luxury no place in the world can afford. Is it really necessary to buy an oversized house only to sleep 8 hours a day? Is it really the environmental cost worth it? No, it isn't. Being able to live in harmony with the environment is really worth it. Using eco-friendly materials is really worth it. Most of all, remembering that human beings aren't the only living creature that relies entirely in the environment for its survival is definitely worth it. Being aware that because of its power, human beings have enormous responsibilities, not only with this society, but with the habitat in which they live in. Acquiring and remembering this knowledge is the first step in a long but simple plan that can be accomplished to share harmoniously the space with nature. The second step is correcting political policies in the terms of construction, being priority building houses in a given space instead of giving that priority to leisure or commercial places. This might sound ridiculously obvious, but Chia had problems to correct that issue. In 2005, Concepcion Baracaldo, in charge for delivering construction licenses, was criticized for her negligence to give licenses on the corresponding time to normal people, who would have to wait around a year to have a construction permit. In contrast with this situation, she didn't hesitate to sell a license in a record time of 35 days to the French franchise of supermarkets Carrefour. What would you think of a place where politically it is given priority to consumption rather than shelter and living commodities? This problem can easily be solved with the application of environmental and fair politics to both inhabitants and the ecosystem. These politics should have valued more the construction of small business and houses and large space that was once designed to an oversized market. Albert Arnold Gore, the candidate for presidency in the U.S. in 2000, has a governmental model for this problem in his documentary An Inconvenient Truth. His preoccupation for the future of the U.S. environmentally are supported with evidence that this country has powered global warming with its CO2 emissions. His policies consisted in reducing as much as possible the use of fossil fuels and get energy from renewable resources, create ecological continence in all the inhabitants of the country, letting them know that they have a moral engagement with the environment and, therefore, the need to recycle, reduce, reuse, and preserve is necessary in the everyday life. These two things lead to the third one that comes almost by itself if the other 2 points of the plan are developed in the correct way: habitat conservation and animal preservation. The third step is to build ecologically responsibly. For construction to be fair with the environment, it is necessary that it accomplishes all of the 9 goals that LEED has. LEED is a voluntary certification program that can be applied to any building type and any building phase. It promotes a whole building approach to sustainability by recognizing performance in key areas. Those key areas are sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, location and linkages, awareness and education, innovation and design, and regional priority. Each of those key areas certifies that the building is eco-friendly in all the possible aspects. A city that accomplishes all these requirements is Freiburg in Breisgau, world's ecological capital, located between France and Switzerland and the Rhine River. Freiburg has sun most of its daytime, making solar power the most sustainable source of energy. All its inhabitants use bicycle and cars aren't even allowed in the urban perimeter, reducing the emissions of CO2 almost to zero. Every building has on its roof solar panels that capture sun's energy, which is used for all the daily tasks. Every aspect of the city is eco-friendly. Even 10,000 of the 215,000 people of the population that the city has are environmental workers. The environmental solutions that are used in Freiburg are simple. Use local materials, rebuild in previously built areas, and modernize buildings to make them harmless for the surrounding environment. Develop a circuit for zero-emission vehicles like bicycles and electric cars, and create environment continence in all the inhabitants. Certainly a viable plan. The possible plan has 6 indispensable points that can't be changed during the course of making Chia a greener city. Change, remake, modernize, create, preserve, and share. Change environmental perspective about the environment and the way people prioritize their wants over the environment's needs. Remake the city model into one that implements ecological buildings, which could replace all houses as the pre-chosen model for building and make taller constructions the new method. Although the house can't be taken down, the mayor can ask the owners to change all in their houses that make them harmful for the ecosystem. The energy sources that the houses use, the impact of its materials on the surroundings, even the damage that non-native plants and landscaping of the house do to the native plants of the area. Modernize the existing buildings to make them work with the available sources of energy, that is in this case the hybrid reservoirs. But as the creek has a low water amount, the energy that it can produce is not enough to supply the whole city. Because of that, it is necessary to have another source of power, which could be the sun. Create new transportation networks that involve zero-emission vehicles and walking in a safe and comfortable way for the inhabitants. This should include a mixture of making everything close to people's houses in a good developed network. Preserve the natural ecosystem of the place during all the processes of construction and make it a priority over human comfort. Share in a responsible way the space and available land with Mother Nature and